Hi everyone, I'm Aideen and welcome to Playful Pathways. Today I am answering another of your Help Me questions. This one has come from Ed and he asks, we have two boys aged 2.5 and 5 years old who've recently started to become very competitive with each other and are constantly pushing each other around and saying, me first, in everything they do. Could you confirm if there is a way of combating this competitive urge or if it's just a phase that they'll grow out of? Thanks for the question, Ed. It does indeed sound like your boys are going through quite a frustrating stage in their relationship with each other. And it's really hard for a parent sometimes to know that fine line between just the playful competition and the roughhousing and something that's a bit more aggressive or a bit more serious. A bit of competition and rivalry between siblings is really, really common, especially in those early years when the more rational and logical parts of the brain are still developing. And while they may not have the vocabulary, the words to be able to talk about their conflicts with each other. So sibling rivalry and competition, like all kinds of behavior, is driven by feelings and by our needs. So it might be that some of this competition that you're seeing between your boys is about a need for stimulation or a need for experience. It might be driven by boredom, or it might be that they're hungry or tired, which can make us more irritable. Or it might be that they're feeling overstimulated, or it could be that what they're looking for in that interaction, in that competition, is a feeling of power or a feeling of validation. It might be that they'll just grow out of it, but I am going to offer you a few suggestions of things that you can do that will hopefully alleviate it and certainly not make it any worse. And to guide these suggestions to you, we're going to have a look at the 6 roots of healthy and strong parent-child relationships. And today I'm going to focus on 4 of them. I'm going to look at boundaries, tuning in, playfulness, and reflecting. So the first thing that we're going to have a look at is boundaries, and this is about perhaps rules or expectations that you put in place around behavior to keep everyone safe and to keep everyone in line and in check with each other. And it might be that there are certain situations where you know that this rivalry, this competition always arises, and you'll put some rules ahead, think ahead, put those rules in place and communicate those so that everybody knows what's expected of them, what's going on. These might be things like saying there's no pushing. Obviously, no pushing allowed anytime, no one's allowed to do that. Or it might be things like if they're doing lots and lots of running races, you might say that the results of a race are only valid if both parties agreed to the race before they started. For those me first situations, then it's often a good idea to put in place some turn taking and again communicate this in advance so that everybody knows whose turn it is on any given time. And like all boundaries and rules, it's really important that you enforce these things and maintain them really consistently, which will help the children to accept them and learn from them a lot more quickly. And in the first instance, while you're setting them up, you will probably have to do a lot more maintaining them and mediating and getting involved until they've just come to accept it and it's second nature. Next, we're going to have a look at tuning in. When those competitions deteriorate into fighting and aggression and frustration with each other, try to tune in, if you can, to what the competition was about in the first place. Was it about power? Or was it about getting your attention? Or was it just because they were feeling a bit bored and they needed some stimulation? Once you've tuned into this, you might begin to notice some patterns about certain times of the day or certain environments where these competitions deteriorate. And once you're aware of that, once you begin to see these patterns, you're going to be in a much, much better position to be able to put things in place to prevent the situation from deteriorating in the first place. Next, we're going to have a look at playfulness because we know that, of course, children learn best and most effectively and efficiently through their play. If you can see that your children are deteriorating into one of those aggressive or competitive bouts because they're bored or because they're looking for something to do, then try and jump in there with a suggestion, an idea of a cooperative or a teamwork-based game that they can do together. And make sure that it's not about having competition with each other. We don't want to be reinforcing that, but it might be that they're in competition with you, or it might be that there's just something cooperative that they can work on together, and then give them loads of really positive feedback about how well they have worked together on that. Finally, we're going to have a look at reflecting, which is really about listening and communicating and helping your child to understand themselves and learn to be able to express themselves. So in those moments where you see that your kids are getting frustrated with each other because of the competition, or perhaps if there's a loser who's being really upset at the end of that competition, you want to try and get in there and empathize with them. So give them the words that they need to be able to express their frustration or their disappointment in that moment, so that they don't feel that the only option is to use their fists to retaliate. What you're trying to do is to ultimately move away from having to police their conflict. That's going to take a little while for them to get the skills to be able to do that. You're going to have to be really stuck in there in the first instance. But over time, once they've practiced this with your support, you're going to be able to step away, and they'll be able to start to talk to each other and resolve their conflicts and work out an agreeable solution for themselves. So as well as giving your kids some tools and some skills to be able to manage their competition and their conflict for themselves, it's also really important that you try to get ahead of the situation and prevent the situation where they're actually in competition with each other because they're looking for your validation. To combat this, you really want to give feedback to your children based on what they're doing as individuals and acknowledging their effort and their intent rather than just outcomes. At the moment, the age gap between your kids means that there's actually quite a big skills gap between them at the moment, but that will narrow as they get older. And so it's really important when that happens that if you see that there's a child who's still working on a new skill, that you give them some feedback about that you notice how hard they're working at it, that they haven't given up, that they're trying something new, not just always giving the high fives to the kid who wins the race. In line with this, be really careful of comparing the children to each other. It's totally normal to do that, to look at the similarities and the differences between them, but this can feel really judgmental to children sometimes and can really make them feel like they have to compete with each other, that that's the only way to get your attention or to get your approval. And finally, when you see that relationship starting to change, when they have those moments where they're being really kind to each other, they're sharing nicely, they're working well together, you want to make sure you're giving them lots of energetic and enthusiastic feedback so that they really, really hear that this is the kind of behavior, the kind of attitude that you want to see more of. So to summarize, sibling rivalry is really, really common, but you can help them learn to move past this or to handle these situations for themselves by setting really clear rules and expectations for how they are to behave or how they're to interact and engage with each other. Be prepared while you're putting these things in place that you're going to have to be quite involved, perhaps in mediating this or following through on the new rules or offering suggestions of alternatives that they can do. And lastly, be really affectionate when you see them working well together or being kind to each other or being cooperative. Thank you very much for the question, Ed. I really hope that you find some useful suggestions in my answer. If you like my videos and you'd like to see more of them, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you have a Help Me question that you'd like me to answer, then head to my Patreon page where members of the Playful Pathways community can submit their questions. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you again very soon. Bye.